Hope you all enjoyed the break and the popcorn. Oh, I see what's happening here. Building. Okay, we're synced up. The whole goal of the coffee is to kind of lift you up, but maybe the sugar crash. I don't think popcorn has the sugar crash, but hopefully we'll get you through the rest of the afternoon. Today we're going to talk about what I would call building the product intelligence muscle. And product intelligence is sort of the Amplitude word for both our product, but also our vision for being more product-led, customer-centric, impact-driven. And today we're going to focus specifically on how to make change stick in your organization and what progress really looks like. In my particular role, which is, the official title is Product Evangelist, but what I actually seem to spend a lot of my time doing is focusing on the systems and the culture around our product versus specifically evangelizing our product. And I think one way to describe that difference is that in a lot of the teams that I meet, there's this attitude around doing this that I would describe as data snacking. There's a lot of data snacking. You need to prove your point. You go in and you get the data, or you're worried about something, you get the data, or you're rushing into a meeting because the board is there and you have 5 minutes to prove something that you need to prove, so you're using those things. And so one of the central parts of my role and the central bets that Amplitude is making is that we need to actually care for the broader system around how people are thinking about building products and thinking about aligning their product teams. Otherwise, the measurement side won't really stick. The companies will still get very stuck in what we would call this data snacking culture. And as part of that, so when I joined Amplitude, the first thing I did, coming from a product background, is to get on the phone. So I opened up these office hours to talk to teams, and I've done a lot of them. So I've done hundreds of these in the last year. So I've spoken to hundreds of teams. Many of the teams that are here, Intercom, Degreed. I've talked to teams from Microsoft, teams from Amazon, lots and lots of teams. And I'd say it's almost like taking a 20-year time journey. So there's teams that it feels like it's the year 2000 and they're competing against other companies that feel like it's the year 2002. And then there's other companies that are feeling like it's 2019 and their competitors are 2020. So there's a huge range of what normally people call maturity, but in any given week, we'll talk to the full range of people. And you can absolutely guess what happens in these office hours is that we talk about things like OKRs and alignment and team structure and the Spotify model and Agile and measurement and one-pagers and this whole laundry list of specific questions people tend to have, or more existential questions like how do we hire better, how do we onboard our PMs. There's a full range of things, and I do my best to just coach people through those. Sometimes it turns into a bit of a therapy session. I did pick pictures where people look pretty angsty, but you get the idea. It's so hard. So one thing you realize when you talk to this many teams, it absolutely does not get any easier. Maybe you learn faster, or maybe your team is just clicking a little bit more, but it truly starts to sink in that this is hard no matter where you're at. Everyone's sort of fighting their own game and in their own particular space, but this is not an easy thing. And so things can get pretty emotional on these calls, and I try to coax them through. But there's been one theme that's jumped out again and again from a lot of these calls. Because people say to me, well, what have you learned talking to these hundreds of teams? What can we do better? And I'm going to approach these themes from two angles. So the first angle is a mindset thing that my friend Jay Bloom discusses. And what he describes is two mindsets. One is gap thinking, which, especially if you've been involved in consulting, you're fully aware of what gap thinking is. You understand your current condition, you understand the idealized end state, you understand exactly what the gap is, and you move through the gap and you reach the idealized end state. And the next way of thinking in Jabe's model is what he calls present thinking. And so present thinking is questions like, where are we right now? What decisions do we need to make right now? What do I need? What can we improve about the current way of working? How do I create a new way of working? So one big takeaway from a lot of these calls that I do, these coaching calls, is that a lot of teams are stuck in perpetual gap thinking. And it is incredibly hard to be in perpetual gap thinking because one of the things about gap thinking is that you're actually devaluing the present. And so a lot of these teams are so dissatisfied with the present condition, and they're pinning so many bets on this idealized end state that they're not actually building the muscle to get better at anything, right? They're just stuck in this cycle of feeling like the present isn't good enough. And I'll give you an example. I was talking to one product leader, and then he lists all these things. He said, well, we've tried OKRs, and then we tried this pod model, and then we tried these one-pagers, and then I tried to restructure the team. And he's listing this for a good 30 seconds, all the things they tried. And he said, well, nothing works in our particular company. We must be completely unique, or maybe the people aren't good enough, and he's digging into it. And I took this as my personal challenge to continue these coaching sessions with this product leader, and what we uncovered together, it wasn't me because I couldn't tell him this, but what he realized together over some time was that they were never creating an environment that was conducive for anything to work, let alone a particular framework or let alone a particular thing that they were doing. So this was very, very fascinating. So this was one big learning, or one angle on this problem, was this idea of perpetual gap thinking. It's never good enough. It's always going to be the new process. It's always going to be the new particular tool. And contrasting that with present thinking around these leaders that you would talk to and say, yeah, it's not all roses, it's not all great, but we tried this, it worked, this other thing didn't work so much. And a little bit like John's talk, right? Like John's talk, he's describing positive signals that they were able to amplify, and the things that weren't working, they were able to dampen, and that's how they improved those things. So that pattern has become very relevant over a period of time. The second angle on this, which I think is really important, is that if you would all sort of follow the product community or marketing community, we hear a ton about these highly idealized stories. And some of you even work at the companies that other people in the audience go to your blog and say, oh my God, we could never do that. Oh, they're so amazing at what they're doing. Like, why can't we write great blog posts just like that? It looks like utopia working in that organization. And so we have those stories. And then on the flip side, we have the juicy, dysfunctional stories that are completely easy for people to get. And I've been guilty of writing some of these blog posts. Occasionally, I wrote this blog post called 12 Signs You're Working in a Future Factory. And I think now it's maybe up to like 750,000 views or something on it. But every week I still get these messages from very angsty engineers that say, I work in that place. How did you know where I worked? And this sucks. And it was kind of like a clickbaity post, but you get the idea. In some ways I've sort of, been contributed to the juicy and relatable stories of chronic dysfunction as well. But the thing that you notice that when you do these conversations is that we need to talk more about the stories in that orange section. It's messy. Things don't work exactly how it plans. We need to talk more about the teams that take a couple months to get better data trust in their environment, improve data literacy. We have to work more at talking about the 10 experiments that fail before you get the 2 experiments that work out. People often see Facebook and they say, whoa, they probably just walked into work one day and had that share with 7 users thing. Why can't we do that? That probably took a long time at Facebook, and so these magic metrics, it never really works like that. So we need to amplify more of the day-to-day stories that it takes to make progress versus these highly idealized stories. Okay, so to summarize this thing, and then we're going to do an activity, which is fun. You have these clipboards. If there's clipboards, it means there will be an activity. So the big takeaway from these coaching calls that I do, that I share with people, is that we tend to get caught up in gap thinking, and we tend to get overly beaten up by either the hyper-dysfunctional stories or the stories about everything being perfect, and we're not hearing enough about the day-to-day stories and things that are working. And here's why this all kind of matters and why this is important here at Backstage is, first, number one, we brought you here together to actually share these stories. So that's number one. This is actually our effort to get more of these real-world stories going. And the second thing is that if we can encourage you as our customers to adopt more of this present thinking and deal with today's problems that are happening right now in your organizations and doing things, it makes it easier for us to help you. Customer success can help you. The people in our companies can help you. It seems to be making those companies a lot more effective, thinking about where they're at right now and how they can improve things. And also, they're a lot more realistic. We get a lot of people who, again, are looking for the magic metric, and then we all talk to these highly successful companies and realize that they never had that magic metric. They've been working for a year to find those things. So that's why we're speaking about this today. But let's just jump to the activity, because I want you all to start talking to each other and sharing some of these actionable things in your environment to inspire other people. So it's not enough about me. I think if we have about 200 people here today, and then I looked at people's roles, we have maybe 2,000 or more years of experience in this room. So that, maybe not all of it positive, some of it tough. But we have a wonderful opportunity to do this. A lot of people from different backgrounds, a lot of people with different levels of positional authority in their companies, some people who are really passionate internal change agents who don't have mandated authority, and then we also have people who are the CPO of their company or the CEO of their company with a lot of different amounts of authority. So, you will see on your clipboard, you will have a clipboard with a one-pager with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections on it. Does everyone have a clipboard? Does someone not have a clipboard? Whoa. Customer success is like, whoever, yeah, you guys set that up. That was amazing. So for the first activity, what I'd like you to do, let me explain the activity, and then you can find someone to pair with. What I want you to do is to design a company for absolute failure, 100% guaranteed failure. I want to brainstorm all the things you could do to guarantee that the company would never become impact-driven, product-led, or customer-centric. No limits. No company would ever make all these mistakes in one place. What processes would you introduce? What structures would you have? What would you try? Like, here's an example, like go out, like remove coffee from the whole company. That could be good. Or massive open floor plans where everyone puts on their headphones and stops talking to each other. That would be really, really good. Or not. Or, well, that's your question. Maybe that's what you've done in your company. So you want this company to completely crash and burn, everyone to leave, a mass exodus. You get the idea. So this is completely over the top. I'm not asking you to be realistic here. So what I want you to do is to find someone who ideally does not work at your company, turn to them, and discuss for just a couple minutes all the ways that you are going to guarantee this hypothetical company to fail. Go. I've learned that if you look really awkwardly at people with your hands up, then they just start to... All right, there we go. I might ask some people to shout some out because this could be really fun, but here's some examples that I heard. Extreme micromanagement, a daily morning conference call involving all members of the team, mandatory one-on-ones every day. This must have been someone from Atlassian. All teams on different project management platforms. Mandatory 50 hours in the office, no flex time, no cross-team collaboration. You have to use actual paper filing systems. That one was good. All emails are completely public and CC to just CC everyone. Testing uniquely forbidden. You are not allowed to test anything. Just build everything in the order that the requests were received exactly from the customer. Does anyone have one or two others to shout out? Yeah? Multi-day meetings with no agenda, that would be good for especially the no clear direction, extreme that might encourage a backlash too. Everything is a spreadsheet. Oh, there's a product around that, I heard. Yeah. Build everything in-house all the time. I mean, you've got the engineers sitting around. Come on now. Right? What's that? Oh, so like you underinvest in talent. Maybe you create bans around talent. There can be so much evil stuff around bans and things like that. Yeah. Don't listen at all to your customers. Another person said, listen to everything from your customers. So somewhere in the middle, hopefully we land there. The what? Dial-up internet? I heard like long feedback loops on your work. Make sure that someone said the board must only use pagers. I feel that was like very, very relevant to a particular team. All right, let's keep moving. All right. So now, anyway, we do that to loosen up. Anyway, the point there, right, none of this stuff happens, right? That's good. So we all know all mistakes that we need to avoid. We never make any of the mistakes. Great, so I can leave. Now, the reality is that when you do these activities, you very quickly see that people generally have a pretty innate sense of the stuff and the traps to avoid, yet we do keep falling into the same traps over and over again. So that's problematic. We have to think about what to do about that. So what I'd like you to do individually, and let me explain how this works. You're going to do this individually, and then you're going to form a group of 3, which will create more connections in the room, people you haven't spoken to before, and you're going to share these. So if you write these down, make it sure it's something you feel comfortable sharing with people. So what I'd like you to do for the next 2 minutes is to do some individual brainstorming about your recent experiences. Again, what we're trying to do is we're talking about present thinking and the idea of building this muscle and observing things that are actually working or things that maybe didn't work the way you expected they worked, but what you learned from them. So what I'd like you to do is to spend a couple minutes, brainstorm some recent experience. 1, areas of momentum, experiments that seem to work, that created momentum in your environment. So for example, at Amplitude, we started, I think Abby's team started to do these bi-weekly learning reviews that have been pretty effective. Like we share what we've been learning and we've created cadence there. That was really good. And then 2 examples of failed experiments that you happen to learn. Like what are the lessons that you learned from trying those particular things in your company? So what I'm going to do is for maybe 2 minutes, individually brainstorm those things, and then we're going to create groups of 3, and you're going to just chat about them. That way we've created this spread of information in the room. So start out with individual brainstorming on these 2 things for 2 minutes. Keep in mind what we said about present thinking, that these don't need to be massive organizational changes. These could just be very specific, actionable things. Actually, it's even better if they're that way. So you don't need to, don't feel like you don't have a great story because you didn't talk about the whole company changing. These can be very specific things that created momentum in your environment. Thanks for doing that. And so we turned on the music. So ideally, you are not talking to people from your company. You'll be amazed what you learn just talking to 2 people that you've not spoken to. So that's another thing. So let's say I might have had, N number of full-time jobs in my career, and then I started this consulting thing. It was only till I really started to talk to so many teams that I started to really challenge a lot of my assumptions. A lot of the ways I thought had always just been in my particular company or what I was doing. So what we're going to try to do now is just try to pair up with or create a group of 3, ideally with people not from your company, and just talk through the things that you learned, talk about the areas of momentum, and there's a little section on the lower right. You can spoke with Margot Smith from Acme, like that. You can write down some things that you learned from those particular conversations, and we'll do that for 5-6 minutes. So you have enough time to really share what you learned. And like I said, in an ideal world, you'd be chatting with people you never chat with. It might mean you might need to move chairs or something, but try to do that. And we'll put the music on, but everyone's going to be talking to you, so there won't be that problem. Cool. Chat with you guys in 3 minutes. So ideally now... All right. I feel so bad interrupting that, because there's a lot of... That's amazing for us to watch. We need to figure out how to get our customers talking to each other more often. I was going to originally go and tell you things that I heard. It seems like there was a lot of impassioned discussions. It would be super helpful if anyone here wouldn't mind sharing at least something that they learned from talking to the other folks that they work with. Really short, but I think that'd be better than you hearing from me about what I heard. So does anyone want to volunteer about something that they learned? And I'll run here with the microphone and do it. And if not, I can fill in blanks. But, oh, tempting. Oh, here we go. On. Yes?
All right. So as teams grow, event taxonomy can become very difficult, and it can feel like a big task to like overhaul all of your event taxonomy. And one of the people that I spoke with ran a workshop with all the teams to like quickly identify the missing events and then use that as like a quick tool to improve event taxonomy.
Cool. Awesome. Anyone have any others? I don't want to pick on people. Oh, there we go. Pass the mic to the middle.
One of the learnings was they bought a bad analytics platform, and then they got a different one that we're attending right now, and things got better.
Okay. All right. That's a pretty successful. Yeah, that's good for us. We like hearing that. So we totally, yeah, that was not pre-planned. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the learnings that Jay shared with us was that he kind of started socializing the roadmap with quarterly meetings where the product org would like share the roadmaps and the learnings and stuff, and that would get much more buying at a company level.
Cool. So like a quarterly cadence for learning reviews and a presentation, as opposed to the running of the bulls, which is normally quarterly planning. Anyone? Oh, yeah.
One thing interesting in our group, usability testing, and I always thought about testing as you roll it out to a test group, see how it performs. We've never internally done usability, like literally sitting somebody from another team at the new feature and seeing if they're able to use it as intended. We've never done this.
Cool. Yep. Usability testing works. Anyone? Thoughts? Okay. I won't punish, maybe you.
So, I thought it was interesting to hear like how there's like things in common, like especially around like making sure that everyone on the team understands the overall common goal of the company and how much more iteration it actually takes to make sure everyone gets that, even if like management thinks like everyone knows. It just needs a lot of imprinting until everyone actually knows.
Repeat. I think that's what one of the main coaching things I give to product is that you have to say it like 10 times more than you think that you need to say it for people to get. Any others? Cool. Well, luckily we have activities, we have drinks afterwards. You can obviously continue these conversations. But I think one of the reasons why I do this is that the good ideas tend to be there, maybe not even in your like a little immediate group, but probably there's other people in your company, there's communities, there's no shortage of ideas. I'm doing the thing. There we go. The thing that they warned me not to do. So what I'm going to finish with in the last 3 minutes is just reiterate some of these things. Is that the first is try to guide your organization more to present thinking. And that doesn't mean, actually Tanner and I from my team, Tanner said, does that mean that there's never a step change involved, that you never need to plan some big step? No, that doesn't mean that. Occasionally there will be a step change involved. But the more you can focus on getting that flywheel going in the here and now, what problems are we seeing, can we improve how we're working right now? That tends to be how these teams are creating progress. And the advantages, really, there's a lot of advantages, but one is that big consulting firms sell gap thinking because people will give them money for gap thinking. But a lot of times when you're doing change internally, it's going to be much more effective if you think about celebrating your wins, dampening the things that are not working, and amplifying the stuff that is working. So that's one of the main things. But finally, what I wanted to leave you with, since we had popcorn for our snack, is a really, really easy to use tool. It's called Popcorn. The inventor of it, his name is Claudio Perone. And Popcorn stands for Problems and Opportunities and Observations. That's the P. O is options. P is possible experiments. C is committed. O is ongoing. R is review. And N is next. So now many of you will look at that and say, oh, that looks like my backlog or my Kanban board or something like that for your thing. But when you start thinking about how you work as a product and your continuous improvement experiments and the things that you need to do to be able to work more effectively, you can start applying the same type of thinking you use for product and experimentation to how you work. So an example here, let's say we observe that some of the product managers lack basic analytics skills. Clue number one, always make sure you can have more than 3 options. Because if you can't, that means that you have a solution, not a problem. So can we come up with 3 options of the way to solve the problem? 1, embed analysts on teams. 2, product managers take online courses. 3, do office hours as a team. And then here's how many of you guys do retrospectives? How many of you have a system in place to hold yourself accountable to a small number of experiments that come out of the retros and then reflect and adapt on whether those things are working? A lot fewer. So retros are easy. That's the easy part. That's the ideas and the pain. We all know about that green and the red on that diagram. That's pretty easy. But the question is, are you getting the flywheel going to be able to focus? So one thing you notice here is that you come up with these possible experiments and then you commit to a small number of experiments. Limit your change in progress. Have a certain small number of these experiments ongoing. You review, and next, so in this case, Mary set up the office hours, they had some expectations, and they had a fixed duration for the experiment at work. If you can get this going, we'll lock you into present thinking and will allow you to improve how you're working. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.